Hello, and welcome to Life Stories with me, Angela Dixon-Watson. My guest today is the daughter of my girlfriend, Huldah Mitchell Simpson, and her name is Nicola Moss, and we call her Nikki. She is a talented young lady, and I often refer to her as my adopted goddaughter. Listeners, can you imagine how startled I was when evil forces attacked her health? But here's the good news. Our Heavenly Father intervened, and Psalms 41, verse 3 applies to her. The Lord sustained her on her sick bed and restored her health. I've heard of ruptured appendix, but never heard of perforated appendix with cancer cells. Nikki, my adopted goddaughter, welcome to Life Stories. Please take
Well,
your time and tell us your story.
well, thank you for having me. Wow. Where to start? What I can say is, and just to take it a step back, uh, I was about to begin travel for work the day before it happened. So I woke up in immense pain, abdominal pain. And at first I thought it was like really extreme gas pain. So typically, you wait it out. I tend to go in and out of sleep when I am in a lot of pain. That's kind of how my body naturally responds to pain. I go in and out of sleep. And I awoke around 5 a.m. in the morning. That's where the pain started. And for about 4 hours, I am in and out of sleep, went to the bathroom, came back, and I'm trying to get comfortable. And like I said, I'm more so thinking I have extreme, some type of gastrointestinal type pain versus what really happened, what I found out later on in the day. So around 9 a.m., went to the bathroom and I just started throwing up in addition to like diarrhea. And I'm going, something is off. So immediately I started querying, what did I eat the day before? I really was just drinking a lot of juices, like fresh made juice at home. So immediately I'm thinking it's something that has to do with food bacteria, whether or not that is E. coli or salmonella. And I'm going, oh my gosh, but my system is repelling it. I started throwing up, became nauseous around 9, and then started throwing up for a good 4 hours, just back to back to back. Around midday, I knew that I would have to seek medical attention because at this point, because of the amount of vomiting, I couldn't keep anything down, whether or not it was water, orange juice, nothing stayed down. And I was so weakened at this point in time, and I'm going back and forth whether or not to call EMT. At the same time, I am problem solving. Should I just go to the urgent care? I eliminated that and, said I will go to ER, but whether or not I will call EMT, do I have enough strength to get over to the hospital? And because I live in California, and California have a wide network of hospitals in Northern California. So I am problem solving which hospital I should go to, the size of the hospital, because I don't want to get lost in the system because I'm showing up with just one may consider just to be, okay, she's having extreme pain, but not necessarily getting the immediate medical attention that may have been warranted or not warranted because I wasn't quite sure what was happening. And like I said, I thought it was more so food poisoning, something of that sort. So I've always said to myself to always have an emergency bag, similar to when women are pregnant, you have your bag, get ready to go to the hospital because you just don't know when that child will come. And I've always said that to myself that I should have an emergency bag, whether or not in the car, in the home, that if anything were to happen, easy grab and go, or I could direct someone to go get the bag. So I obviously I didn't have that. So I am debating in which, okay, let me get a couple things together. Going into the emergency room, you know that emergency room can be pretty cold, and not knowing how long it was going to take for me to be seen. So I was able to grab, a couple of things for comfort, like my blanket, things of that nature. And I literally was problem solving on how to conserve my energy because I had decided not to call EMT and to drive myself to the hospital. And the hospital that I chose was roughly no more than 3 miles away, if that. So upon arriving, was able to get into the emergency room waiting area. Luckily, at that time of day, this was probably around 3, 4 o'clock, because I was problem solving again, not trying to get stuck in traffic while I am taking myself there, because this is all about conserving energy while I am in a lot of pain. So when I got there weren't a lot of people in the waiting room, which is good. I was probably the third person to be seen. Um, Upon getting into the area of assessment, and I mentioned to the ER doctor what I was feeling, and they were poking around the area to figure out where the pain was stemming from and the intensity of the pain. And he looked at me, he said, we have a feeling it is your appendix. Before even getting to that, trying to draw blood, I was so dehydrated and my veins are already very small to begin with. So it took them a while to even being able to administer antibiotics or anything because they just couldn't find my vein. Eventually, they had to get an ultrasound in trying to find my vein. I got stuck so many times before the ultrasound came in. So they used the ultrasound to find the veins, and they ended up had to do a hard stick. Some of you may know what that is. It's just basically ramming that needle up into your arm because my veins were moving around so much. So the antibiotics was administered. They put me on morphine and to help to stabilize everything that I was feeling. The CT scan with contrast, they did that because they wanted to have a clear view of what was happening in that area. And upon everything being assessed, the appendix was still intact, but they saw something else, and immediately it was, we're scheduling you for emergency surgery. And at this point, I am just like, okay, all right. They were like, we're admitting you right now. So I waited to send the news to my mom, which was one of the last ones to hear. So I'd reach out to my dad and my sister, because I'm saying to myself, between now and me getting up to the room that I was assigned, you never know what can happen. Right. So I alerted them that I was in the hospital in the emergency room and I'm being admitted, and gave them the early diagnosis, if you will. And then I'd reach out to my mom probably around 5 a.m. Eastern time. That's when she wakes up, and her news was, you're not going to school today, because she works in the Prince George's County school system. You will be on a flight heading to California, because I am going into emergency surgery. The next day, my name was put on the schedule, and with that hospital, they don't have a permanent surgeon, so it's a part of a bigger network. So the surgeons kind of rotate to the hospital. So based on what they saw on the CT scan, in which they were able to stabilize the antibiotics were working, and although my name was on the list to go into surgery within that day, the surgery could not be accommodated. So it was delayed by, I would say, another less than 24 hours. And the surgery doctor came down and explained to me what was happening and what they saw. And what she she used the terminology appendiceal. And the look on my face was like, what is appendiceal? I've heard of appendix. What is appendiceal? And she mentions like, we are seeing a small tumor in your appendix. And I was obviously frightened. And she mentioned what the size is, which was less than, I believe, 2 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. And with that being said, she had said, even if we were able to treat you with antibiotics and to release you and continue to watch, we cannot do that because of the appendiceal. So you have to have an appendectomy, which is the removal of the appendix. Uh, so she explained to me what was going to happen, and she also said that based on what they're seeing with the appendix still being intact and being localized, they are going to attempt. The first attempt is laparoscopic, and showed me the areas in which the incision is going to happen. But she also said, we don't know what the area looks like until we get in. So the goal is to stick with the laparoscopic, but there may be a potential of they have to do what is traditional surgery in cutting through the layers. Uh, so the next day, surgery came around. What I never really spoke about to anyone is the fact that I have a deathly fear of hospitals. Um, I have a phobia. I've always associated hospitals with death because majority of the death in my family, once they go in, even if it's for something routine, they never come out alive. So, and that has been with me since I was a child. So whenever I enter into hospitals, cold sweat washes over me, and within like 30 minutes or so, faint spells start to take over. And what I can say to you, the time that I was there before even going into surgery, imagine having that fear of death, then you're going into surgery. In which it's just like a deadly combination from a psychological standpoint that could affect so many things. And throughout that time, whether or not it was the staff of all the coordination of everything that was happening, the thought of hospital never came to thought, which is, to me, it's amazing that that did not happen. So the day of surgery, my mom had gotten in town, and she wasn't there when I was being wheeled out of my room to the surgery room. And when I arrived on the surgery room, meeting the team, from the anesthesiologist, the surgeon came in, and surgeon asked me a couple questions, and I told him that my mom came into town and she's downstairs. She wasn't able to see me. He took her information and said that he would reach out to her after the surgery. And I don't know when I went down, but I awoke and I heard the surgery doctor, someone that was speaking and saying that the surgery that should have been 30 minutes took 90 minutes. When they entered the area, it was more than what they had anticipated. So it ended up like my appendix was still intact. So, i.e., acute appendicitis. However, it was complicated. So it was perforated and it was draining into the abdominal area, the uterus area, if you will. So there was a lot of pus in the area. The area started to turn gangrene. Part of the appendix was gangrenous, meaning it was grayed and there was no blood circulation there whatsoever. So it was successfully removed, and post surgery with all of the pathology report and everything was cleaned up. I was in the hospital for an additional 3 to 4 days. Typically, you're released soon thereafter, but I was in there for another 3 to 4 days because my heart rate had elevated so much during surgery, and it took about 3 days for them to bring it back down. It has been a journey. What I can say to you on the back end of it, I coming out of surgery and just coming around to the, um, understanding everything that had transpired for something that I thought was going to be very simple, end up being appendicitis, but ended up being a very complex one because of all of the complexity that was happening, the underlying factors that was happening in my body. And it's been a journey where I have said this to many people. The appendicitis was a blessing in disguise. The good thing about the appendiceal, because it was so small with the removal of the appendix, basically the cell that would eventually grow into a cancerous cell got removed along with it. So it's I'm sitting here smiling because it's one of those things in which you look at a situation like that and said it was a blessing that it happened, and not the why me or anything of that sort. Were there signs that I missed? Is the fact that, one, I listened to my body that day, and to this day I will say, if I wasn't throwing up, I would have probably just pushed through it. But because my body just started to show signs of it's repelling something, and I tend to listen to my body in that way, in which it is fighting against something. I'm getting dehydrated because of the amount of vomiting throughout like a 3 to 4 hour period. So I had no other choice, and I couldn't keep anything down. So I had to find my way to the hospital versus, oh, let me see if everything subside overnight and then progress into what the next steps are.
So, Nikki, what a story. On a scale of 1 to 10, what level was your pain while driving yourself to the hospital?
It was about a 9.
And you are your mother's only child. How did she handle this diagnosis?
To be honest with you, I don't think she really digested the information. Because I just ripped the band-aid off, and it was, here's the plan, here's a solution. You're on a flight at 12. That's it. And what I said to her, do not pack anything, because I knew if she got into trying to sort herself out, that's where it would be too much for her. So I just said, the only thing you need is your handbag and your ID. That is it. Do not pack anything. Just go directly to the airport.
And in an effort to spread hope, kindly share what is sustaining you emotionally, physically, and spiritually.
I would say it's reflection, introspection, and humility, right? Reflection, it's always in a state of calmness and gratitude, if you will. The being introspective, it's seeing everything that has happened over time, whether or not it's this recent surgery or before that, where I am humbled by the fact that even when I don't know that God is working, He continues to show that He's working. So I remain in that space of being completely humbled, which allows me, from a spiritual, emotional standpoint and a physical standpoint, to be present in the moment at all times.
Awesome. And any special song that kept you going? Any song that, you grew up with in Jamaica and that helped you to sustain, the process of being in the hospital? Or a
You know,
scripture or song?
right? You know, not necessarily any specific song, so to speak. I just tend to break out into my own Thanksgiving song. I literally just makes things up in my mind and just start humming it. And it's always have to do with Thanksgiving and praise worship, if you will, but not necessarily what would be a commercialized song that anyone would know.
Awesome, my dear Nikki. And thank you for sharing your awe and inspiring life story on life, your emotional, physical, and spiritual nuggets. will be a roadmap for us while traveling on the journey of life.
Thank you.